Wake up. Wake up dancing. Wake up dancing. Wake up dancing. Harv is gonna make you dance. Wake up dancing. Wake up dancing. Wake up dancing. Wake up, Harv is gonna make you dance.
You know, so you have to give, and that's the thing that people don't realize. You got to put history back the way it was. And there's a lot of people that have written things and have inserted themselves into the history that's not correct. You know, I mean, but that's all the way things are. That's history according to you is what I call it, okay?
Yeah.
I was there, all right? I was there. I did it. I lived it. This is my life, okay? And I seen it a little bit differently. And a lot of you talk to the other guys, they'll tell you the same thing. You know, there's been so many documentaries and things that you look at it and like, holy crap, this guy was actually there. Well, he was. How could he be there when we didn't play his records on the radio? All right, you know, and it's just it really it bothers me a little bit, but I kind of set it straight when I had the chance to. You know?
Yeah, me and Harv were just talking about that a couple weeks ago, where some of the CYC guys are now running around saying that they were this, they were that, and I'm like, wait a minute, I was there. I don't remember this person being there.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, I've been blessed to do so many things in my career. Harv is the historian of a lot of this stuff, and, you know, he even corrects me if I get something wrong, okay? You know, or reminds me about things that I might have forgotten, you know what I mean? But Harv's pretty much a historian of this stuff, and he sees a lot of things. Sometimes his dates, they occurred, but they were not in the right sequence. And, you know, it's important to try to put them back, but I guess the only way that you can flush that kind of stuff out is to sit and talk about it and, you know, really put it back in order. But that's part of the problem with, you know, writing a damn bio. I'll be sitting here until I'm 60 trying to write stuff. You know, I write things in pieces and put it back up out of there. But, you know, I'm glad that you're on Harv to help keep track of some of this stuff.
And you were equal opportunity. You were a nice guy, because I have a tape somewhere, a search on tape from Walgreens, and it's a mix. And part of this mix, you were doing Last Night a DJ Saved My Life, and then you dropped every name of the Hot Mix 5 in your own voice into the mix. And you didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But you did.
Yeah. That was just part of the fun, you know.
So tell me about. Eventually you finished at WCYC and you were program director there for a while, so you did some teaching and you brought up some students that made it, you know, fairly big in the radio world. We should set the record straight, and I asked Juan this once upon a time. I said, boy, Kenny must have really hated me, and we knew each other before the CYC days, but it was a rough transition when I came along on during the week for Harold, and then doing some things on Saturdays, and then Juan winds up reminding me that I didn't even have access to music at one point in time. So, did you really hate me?
No, not at all. And I would, I can tell you honestly, I would get aggravated and upset because Juan will tell you, I spent a lot of hours in the station doing things. Not only teaching, but doing production work so you can move the show the way it would go, which meant spooling cards, recording them, all kinds of things. The thing with the rotation and the format, you know, the whole card library. And I would be very mad when I would come in and see everything. It wasn't only you, our counterparts in the Spanish side would do it too. They get the key for the cabinet and open it up, and all of a sudden everything's out of order. And then when it came time to, like, these guys would go on the air, and there would come time to play things on the log, if we had a log, and we were, I would do the music logs, and they were gonna, we were playing things and teaching them how radio works was what it was, okay? And you do get to play some things, and they would insert things into the log when it came time for a pick-your-own request, but there were rotations and stuff, and you would go to a real station, you don't even get that choice. It's the music director or the program director that decides what gets played, right? And but we were teaching them how to function at a radio station, and all of a sudden, you're supposed to play this card, and card 212 is missing, right? It's missing because somebody took it out, took it to another room, and decided that they wanted to make a cassette of it and forgot to put it back, you know. Decided that they wanted to make a cassette of it and forgot to put it back, you know, and it would screw up the show. And then when you would go and reconcile the logs, you'd say, what the heck? Why'd you play this? Well, that's because the cart wasn't there. Well, what happened over here? The cart wasn't there either. Well, where's the mixtape? Well, the mixtape was gone. And then it would appear next week. That was the thing that aggravated me. But you were the guy that was supposed to take care of everybody that was in your group. And, you know, I know you tried, but people would still do things. And that was the problem, man. Maybe it was me just trying to be perfectionist or trying to, you know, make sure that the program ran correctly. But I wasn't mad at you. I was just mad because of the way things were running around the station. And I did not run things like that. You know, Juan will tell you, we ran a really tight ship, but that kind of training that they had actually helped them, you know, get a job at a radio station because they understood what was going on. I mean, it was in the real world, you know.
I remember half of our meetings sometimes used to be, you know, who wasn't following logs and what happened. I remember a lot of that on Monday nights when we used to have our meetings. That a lot of it, you know, Kenny was a stickler about the logs, and some guys took it seriously and some guys didn't.
Well, I knew that Kenny didn't hate me because our friendship predated when I landed at WCYC, but I did tell Juan once upon a time, and he reminded me that the music would get locked up, and yeah, I had a team that was doing stuff on Saturdays, but we actually didn't touch that music because what Harold challenged us to do with that time block was come up with different stuff. So we did like a rock show and a countdown show and a disco show and a blues show and a slow jam show.
Yep.
So you know,
so we blew up.
It wasn't me, man.
Oh, but that was where it was started from. You know, you were taking them in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, eventually, Harv, he's saying eventually that's the freestyle was spawned from that.
And then that becomes then that became the even more interesting thing when you had to move on because, you know, you were with the service department, it's a full-time job, you're married, you've got kids.
That's another thing. Nobody even realized, well, the kids at the station did, but a lot of people didn't realize I held another career. I was with the Cook County Sheriff's Department for 22 and a half years, you know. It was a whole other career of mine. When I left, I started as an officer in the jail, correctional officer. When I left, I was a lieutenant at the sheriff's police. I was all by rank, but I was a director of radio communications. I built their whole digital network that they're working on today.
And you would show up at WCYC in full regale. But my point was about to become that even though there was supposedly static between the Young Sounds and the group that I had working on Saturday mornings, when you had to make a decision, and I've never asked you this before, so I guess I'll be asking you for the first time, when you had to make a decision as to who was going to take your place as a program director, you decided I would be a part of that mix, which really blew some people away because first, we probably started off on the wrong foot with the whole thing with the Saturdays, but then you had a whole team of Young Sounds people that thought that maybe they should be the ones.
Well, the truth was is that there were people that were coming up that you know learned, okay, but you were more mature, more experienced than the other ones, and you're the better choice. So.
Wow, it took him 3 whole seconds to say that. I thought
the truth.
Yeah, you heard it here.
I thought he was going to tell the world how wonderful I was and how revolutionary I was. And
no, the truth is the truth. You know, I mean, you. I mean, even though you were doing something different, there was, you know, you could see the organizational skills that you had, right? And that right there is the first thing that you have to have as a program director.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, and I did at the time, even though I was blown away because we didn't talk about it beforehand. It was a really, really nice thing that you did, and it was kind of at the risk of the Young Sounds that you were in charge of, one of whom now calls himself DJ Soul Pimp, and me and Juan like to laugh at the fact that George Salinas was very, very emotional when you gave your goodbye speech. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, well, you know, I had been there for, I've been there for a long time. My job at the Sheriff's Department, first of all, you know, a lot of things had changed. I was married. My daughter was growing up, Okay, so I had a little girl, and I had to spend more time there. My job at the sheriff's office changed because I had come out of the jail and went on the street. I was in the electronic monitoring section, which forced me to work nights for the chief and had the fugitive apprehension team. So I was out there, serving warrants in the middle of the night and something. My focus over there had changed, so it was using up a lot of my time, and I didn't have the time to devote to the the program, and I wanted to be fair because I can't be an absentee landlord. You know what I mean? That's not the place to do that. So it was time to just say goodbye for whatever, and hopefully come back at some other point. You know what I mean? And but after that, after you left, then the station really changed hands and went down the hill. So I mean, but it was the dedication of the volunteers, and I was a volunteer there. Mm-hmm. I worked all the hours and stuff I put in. I was a volunteer. I wasn't a paid staff member, and which I put in a lot of hours, just like you did, and just like Juan, everybody did. But just to make sure that the program ran. But it was just my life had become more complex, and I didn't have the time to devote to it. That with the Hot Mix Live career, it just became too much. Something it had to go.
So you weren't mad when you heard that I was phasing out some of the hot mix or some of the house music stuff in order to bring in what I had started playing on Saturdays in terms of the freestyle stuff?
No, not at all. Because some of the people needed to be phased out. Okay, but things evolve. You know what I mean? And the guys that ended up staying around kind of evolved with the program, and the guys that left, well, they left because they didn't like what was going on, or they had other things going on in their life too, or they wanted to go in a different direction. I wasn't upset with that. That's the way life is. Happens every day. You can go to work for a company, and all of a sudden the big boss changes, and he decides he wants to bring in his people, and that's the way life is. You just have to accept that as fact and move on. That happens in radio all the time, right? So.
What would you say is the best of the times that you had back then, and what was your legacy with WCYC? Because with everything you've done for more than 30 years, for a lot of people, WCYC is more of a footnote to you or for you, where we know different because we were there back then. What would you like for your legacy to be, or what do you think your legacy is?
Watching every single one of you guys that worked with me and for me be successful. That's my legacy. I'm just happy with that. I was happy to be part of it.
And Juan, you've told stories too about Kenny and Harold, trying to buy into allowing you to do things, because back then people didn't know this, and even now people are learning it for the first time. Juan can't see.
Right.
And Juan is doing a radio show where he has to run board and play vinyl. And I know Harold was apprehensive about it because of that, but he managed to do it. I mean, WCYC was equal opportunity to everyone, including someone who had no vision.
I think the biggest fear for Harold was because I used to walk at night, and I was lugging records back and forth, and that was one of the things that bugged him the most. He was like, I really don't want you to do that. I said, well, I'll go, that's part of what I do for the show. And but Kenny gave me the opportunity, and fortunately,
what did I tell you? I always told you, don't let your disability be a handicap.
Yep. Fortunately, exactly. I mean, Kenny took it upon himself just to kind of more or less took me under his wing and said, look, I'm going to give you an opportunity here, but you can't blow this for me. And he was pretty serious about it, because that Monday night show that I eventually walked into, that was one of the staples of the station at the time.
Yeah, we stayed on the air an extra 3 hours so you could do a show. And what we did was, we made sure that you were comfortable in that studio so you could run the studio yourself.
Yeah. I mean,
and he did. He was a badass, I'm telling you. He still is.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that Kenny would tell me is, and I got lucky because I remember people weren't showing up for that Monday night slot. And I remember one time Kenny telling me, he goes, the way it happened was, everybody was we were supposed to have a meeting that day, as a matter of fact, and I think only 2 people showed up to the meeting. It was me and somebody else, and then Kenny just said, "Forget it. We're not gonna have a meeting." And Kenny walked into the other room and was just doing production. He was recording cards. And he sat me there in front of the board and said, here's 2 stacks of cards. You play this, play this, play that. And he says, do you know the big board? And I'm like, yeah, I know it. I knew it. I mean, Harold just didn't want to let me on. And then Kenny said, well, he goes, let me see what you can do. And I guess he watched me from the other room for about an hour. And then he asked me, I asked him, actually. I said, Kenny, can I go on the air? And he said, yeah. He goes, let me hear you. Let me try it. Let me see how you sound. And it happened from then on. I mean, and then from that following week forward, he said, you know what? He goes, if you want this show, the show is yours.